Hello and welcome to the dinner agenda. This is Bo.
This is CLo.
Hello, CLo. How are you?
How's it going?
Good. It's going good.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm so good. I'm
Are
gonna
you?
have to invite you guys over to play some cards soon.
Why?
'Cause I have a brand new card table, like a green felt poker playing card table.
Why?
It's
Why?
in a box. It's huge. It's sitting in my kitchen.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What made you buy
Oh,
this?
why? Oh, thanks for asking why. Let me tell you more about
Sure.
that.
Oh, no. What happened? Tell me.
So my stepmom and my sister-in-law have been longtime auction people. They like going to auction, they're collectors, and they're often talking about their experiences there. And when I saw them recently, they were talking about this online auction place and singing the praises of it. And I'm like, "Oh, that's cool. I don't need anywhere to buy. I don't need to buy any more things, you know?"
Mm.
So I think like that same night before I got into bed, I'm like, maybe I'll just check it out. It's online. I'm on my phone, easy peasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I go online and then I'm looking and I'm like, oh, look at this New Balance shoes for $10. Like, that's a great deal. It wasn't my size though, so it kind of sucked. And then I saw a couple of other things. I'm like, oh, there's some pretty good stuff on here.
Mm-hmm.
And I made the stupid mistake of showing wifey the next day. And
Oh
so
my God.
So now we have an online auction account
Mm.
and
Oh,
it combines competition and gambling and shopping online all in one for her. And so that's now how I have a green felt poker card table sitting in my kitchen.
okay.
I also have a commercial deep fryer.
What?
I have an
Why?
ice maker. I
What?
have,
What? Okay, this is your fucking fault. You know that, right? It's
you
your
know,
fault.
I know I shouldn't have done it. Well, the ice maker I really wanted because it'll be great for up north. But other than that, yeah.
Okay. Enjoy spending $500 in oil just to deep fry some chicken wings.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to have like a big fish fry or
Okay.
something like that
Yeah, you do that.
and play cards
And play
and make ice.
cards and make ice in our drinks. That's lovely. Well,
Then,
you
like, I'll give her, okay, there are some good deals to be
sure.
found. I agree. But
Mm,
sometimes I'm just rolling my eyes at
I
the
know.
boxes and questioning why on earth did I ever
I know.
share
So I know that you have internet controls on for your kids.
everything.
Yeah,
Yes.
you may need to apply that to your wife and not tell her so that way. I don't know. The website's down. I don't know why you
Must
can't
be
bid
down.
on the
They must have gone out of business. I don't know. I'm sorry.
well,
Like, that's just how it is.
I have to tell you, so, like, I know I'm sitting here saying, like, "You're fucking stupid," because you should have known better, but, you know, I just did something really stupid too. I went to the home show. Um,
Well, that doesn't sound stupid.
no,
That sounds
no,
like fun.
no, yeah. So, I went to the home show. I don't know what the fuck my problem was, but I go there. I came home with a straightening iron for my hair, which I already have a million of. But this one uses steam and this one damages your hair less and this one's really easy to and so
How much was it?
oh, that was $150.
Oh, my
And then
word.
I came oh no, it goes downhill from there. And then I bought some new frying pans because Dave was like, "I really hate these frying pans that we have. If you ever
Yeah.
find some really good quality frying pans." So I bought some new frying pans. And then the best part was I bought a new mattress. Like, what the fuck?
What do you need a new mattress for?
I don't know because
Why did you buy it at the home show
it
instead
was
of doing
cheaper.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so
I would think like Sleep Country has a deal on. That would
well,
be the time I would
okay,
go get a mattress.
so let me tell you. So it was at the Sleep Country, the Sleep Country booth where
Oh, the Sleep Country.
it was the
Oh,
Sleep Country
okay.
booth,
I've
and
been there before.
so they actually, they buy back your old mattresses. So we have the mattress that we have right now, I think is 10 years old, and they said that they would buy it back. And so they bought it back and I was able to apply that to a brand new Tempur-Pedic mattress.
Oh my god.
I know.
That's
So, I
kind of
mean,
funny.
I'm condemning you for the online auction, and then look
Yeah.
at what I fricking did. But you know what? I'm allowed to be ju
Practice what you preach, girl.
yeah, I'd like to take it back, but I'm not going to because it made me feel good to say that you were a fucking idiot, so
I was gonna say, for what it's worth, I do believe a brand new frying pan did come in from the online
did.
auction, and I have about 80 frying pans, I think, in my house. Anything like kitchen stuff, because
Yeah.
Chefy Chef wife is always on top of that stuff, which is
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. Well, anything that Mel will use to cook with, I'm down for. So, yeah.
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 And I'm told I'm not allowed to complain about those purchases because she's the chef, so
Mhm.
she gets to pick and do
Got it.
those things,
Got
but
it. Well, note to self, put the credit card in the freezer. Stop spending.
yeah, no kidding. Damn those little
Uh,
easy ways of just saying, "Oh, click on Visa," and it fills in all the
ugh.
shit for you.
And then you just get so taken in, right? Like the excitement of it all and oh, it was such a great deal, you know? Oh, well,
Yeah.
it's okay. I better have some really good sleep with this bloody Tempur-Pedic mattress thing.
Yeah, no kidding. I'll need a full report on that for
Yeah. Well,
sure.
next time you're over, come and jump on it and see what you think.
Mhm,
Okay.
mhm.
So, what's on the agenda?
Okay, so I'll give you a little bit of a backstory
Sure.
before I say what it is. But I
Okay.
have a friend of mine who's been married for a number of years and is constant it's their relationship is in turmoil. It feels like all the time. Like it feels like there's always something kind of going on. And I thought to myself, why on earth does she stay? I don't understand it. There's no kids. There's no kids involved. And so I think like a lot of times people consider that before they leave a relationship and that adds a different layer sometimes. So that I feel like I can relate to, but on your own, she's young, and
Yeah.
I just don't understand it. So I started, looking up a couple of things, and I found this, information on trauma bond
Hmm.
or trauma bonding,
Okay.
and I started to read through some of the you
Mhm.
get down one of those Google rat holes, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so I'm just reading and reading a little bit about it, and so that's what I thought would be a good, agenda topic for today, trauma bond.
That's interesting. That's a very interesting one. Okay.
Yeah.
So, trauma bonding. Do you have information on trauma bonding?
I have a little bit, but I think I'll tell you a little bit more about, their story.
Okay.
And or not really their story, more so how I felt, right?
Mhm.
So I felt like I was being judgmental. I felt like I couldn't, I was like, cause didn't
What?
understand why they were staying,
So
why they were staying with
what
the
made you
person.
feel like you were like what were you saying to her?
Well, I feel like it's easy for me to say, why don't you pick up and leave? It's easy for
Mm,
me to say
okay.
it should be an easy thing to do,
Okay.
right? And
Okay.
so I think that's what inspired me to kinda look up a little bit more information was the fact that it must not be easy or
Yeah.
else she would have done it, right? She would have done it before.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, okay, so what I found out was, um the trauma bond is basically like a connection
Uh-huh.
between an abusive person and the individual they abuse. That's what's kind of meant by that term,
Okay.
trauma bond.
Okay.
And it's an attachment created by repeating physical or emotional. In this case, it was emotional trauma with some kind of positive like reinforcement.
Mhm.
And so it gets the person impacted by it
Mhm.
into a really tough spot because they're unable to break away from it.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you know what? This has me thinking actually. I know that when I was in my early 20s, I was in a not so great relationship with somebody and I know that you're aware of that person because you've been my friend forever, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, and I know it's funny cuz it's making me remember back then as well. I think that you and I had also had similar conversations back then where you were like, "You need to just leave." And I couldn't. And you were like, "But you need to it was very like, you gotta go, you need to leave." And you know what? I remember I kinda stopped talking to you about it a little bit because not that it was your fault, but it was I was so confused because I couldn't leave, and then I was feeling very, stupid about that, you know what I mean? And embarrassed and humiliated that I was
And
allowing this to happen, and I
well,
just kinda shut down, you know?
and that
Um,
makes sense to me. That
yeah,
totally makes sense to me, and I think too that's why people are kind of reluctant to talk about it
yeah,
because of that feeling of being embarrassed, of
yeah,
not being strong enough or not being,
maybe.
something enough to be able to get out of the relationship. But when you read a little bit about it, it's, the abuser in this relationship, and again, not necessarily physical, I'm talking
Yeah.
emotional,
Mhm.
um, essentially really grooms their person, their
Yeah,
interest.
yeah.
And so it's through that whole process that all of a sudden, you're not all of a sudden, like through that process and during over that period of time, it becomes so difficult. You're
Mhm,
so enmeshed with this person.
mhm.
And it starts off positive.
Yeah.
It starts off with what they call love bombing, right?
Yep.
And that's at the very beginning, and you're appreciated and you're
Mhm,
loved and you get nice prezzies
mm,
and it feels good and it maybe even feels too good to be true,
mhm,
right?
mm,
And that's kind of that first step.
mhm. So, it's funny that you talk about the love bombing, that happened with me for sure. In the beginning, he was just like, "You're so pretty, you're so beautiful. I can't believe that you're with me. I've always wanted somebody like you. I've never been able to find them. I'm such a, he would go on about like, I'm not worthy of you. I can't believe somebody like you is even interested." And it was just such a like I started to feel, I don't know. I want to kind of say like, how you want to like you feel bad for somebody, you wanna fix them, or you wanna show them love and compassion because they've been hurt, and you know what I mean? Like, that
Right.
kinda stuff, so
Yeah.
you start kinda getting I started, getting into kinda that a little bit, those feelings a little bit, and he was also, like he knew a lot of, well-to-do people as well, and, so, he was kind of
Mhm.
whining and dining me a lot as well, and it just felt honestly, it felt so great,
It's
and
like
and yeah,
Wonderstruck or something where
yeah,
you're just like,
yeah,
"What is happening to me right now?"
yeah, yeah,
And so, yeah, that part, if that's where it ended, then that would be awesome, right?
yeah.
Then it would just be an awesome relationship.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so the next step though is building on that trust they've created by showering you with the love and affection.
Yeah.
And then that trust becomes almost like a form of dependency,
Mhm. Mm.
right? And
Yeah.
that over a period of time you start to depend on them. It could be for love, it could be for that validation. Like sometimes I think, in your case, you had not experienced a relationship. That was probably one of your first serious relationships
Mhm.
like that before. And so it's almost like, oh, this is so awesome. And you know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
pulling the wool over a little bit. And,
Mhm.
they can essentially make you feel like you have such a strong love and connection with them
Yeah.
and that to me sounds so much like sometimes like young love
Yes.
and
Yep.
and that there's, nothing you wouldn't do for them. You become pretty solely dependent on them.
Yeah. That actually makes a lot of sense. I guess making you feel, like that relationship is just, like, so special, but, also it makes
What
me
would you do without me?
well,
That's the part that
yeah.
I like that's like where the work from the abuser starts to come in, right?
Yeah.
When that's when grooming is happening.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the dependency part really kinda hit me there because it's like, I remember we started dating and I had had a very good like social life prior to meeting him, like, I was in college at the time. And I had friends and we were out on weekends and that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
And it does seem like when I started dating him almost I want to say overnight, but it probably wasn't overnight, but it felt like him and I became inseparable almost. It was like we did absolutely everything together, and then, he'd never wanted to do it with my friends. So, Like when we would go out to places, if we were going to go out dancing, if we were going to go out, wherever, it was always, no, I want to just do it you and I don't want to join your friends. I don't want to. And so he never really came around a lot. If you remember, CeeLo,
Mhm.
he was never really around us a lot. When I was out with you guys, I was out with like by myself with you.
Solo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
If you were allowed to go out solo,
I remember that too.
right?
Yeah. I
Like,
remember
that's
that
that
too.
control part of it.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
remember when we went to Niagara Falls?
No. What? We went to Niagara Falls.
You and him and me and my one and only boyfriend
Oh my,
went to Niagara Falls. I
I
have
remember.
picture evidence, though. I have picture evidence.
Okay. So I remember us going camping. I'm vaguely remembering Niagara
Yeah,
Falls. I don't
me
know
too.
why. So we
Yeah,
went together. Okay. All right. And
yeah, we went together. No, I was just saying. I
oh,
remember that because you were like,
I thought
"We
there was
didn't
a
hang
story that I didn't remember. I was like, what the shit?
There's, like, some big long story. No, it was
Well,
just that we went. No, because you had said that you don't recall you guys doing a lot together. It
no,
was either you and him
always,
or
yeah,
you were on your own doing something, and
yeah,
so, the one time I do
but
remember was definitely,
yeah,
Niagara Falls.
yeah. So that, okay. So, and I remember us camping. I remember the four of us going to some cottage. Like, let's be real, it wasn't camping because I don't camp, but it was like, it was like a cottage, right? And I remember that, but though I think those are the only two times I remember. And I don't ever
Yeah,
remember because you and I used to go out dancing a lot. We used to, I don't
yeah,
ever remember him coming out with us together with that. It was always just him and I, mostly
solo.
him and I. But okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, so now, like, over time, you've got the love bombing, and then
Mm-hmm,
you've got this, like, trust dependency
mm-hmm,
phase, so still everything is good, but then it starts with criticism, and it starts very subtly, and it's just
oh,
comments about
yeah.
maybe your friends and how they are, and maybe they're not that great for you. Maybe it's your family that he's trying
Oh
to,
my God.
pull you away
Yeah.
from, um and it starts maybe with a little bit of negative things about you specifically,
Mm-hmm,
like that
mm-hmm,
shirt you're wearing is not that complimentary.
mm-hmm,
You, you look better in these. So it starts off very subtly, but it starts to, if you were someone with, not great self-esteem,
mm-hmm,
right? And then you're taking up this love mountain,
mm-hmm.
and then you're slowly starting to be chipped back down to
Yeah.
where you should be in this controlled, almost like environment.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because but the criticism. So, um, I do remember that happening, with me. So I remember it did start off exactly as you kind of described it, where it was, you know, why are you always wearing jeans? Why can't you wear a dress? It started off with that kind of stuff. And then you were like, oh, okay, well, maybe I do wear jeans too often. Maybe I will wear a dress, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
it just continually progressed. And from those simple things, it progressed to comments about my weight, right? Like, fuck's sake, it's
Yep.
always about the fucking weight in this story,
Well,
you know what I mean?
I
Like,
think,
it's
like, the abuser in this scenario or in these scenarios,
Mhm.
they're smart.
Oh, yeah, they
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 know
are.
exactly what it is
Yeah,
to, enough to kind of pick on,
yeah.
to get to you for sure.
You
For
know,
sure.
it's funny because I remember you getting your dog. Remember Sydney?
Yeah, Sydney
Yeah.
region.
Yeah. And so, gosh, we were in our 20s, I think, right? I think we were in our
Yep.
20s. And you got this dog, and I remember you calling and saying, "I just got a puppy." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, you've got to come over and show me this puppy." And you brought the puppy, and my ex was there with us. And I was just so overjoyed about seeing this puppy, and you were so excited, and we were so happy, and blah, blah, blah. And you had left. And I remember him saying, I know you keep saying she's your best friend, but I can't see it. I don't understand why you think she's your best friend. I don't see that she cares about you. I mean, does she come around enough? Does she, and he was just really kind of trying to get into my head that you were just not that great of a friend to me. And it's funny because you're saying this, and I'm
Yeah.
thinking about what you've just said about the criticism, about the dependency,
Yeah.
all that stuff, and the isolation, like you mentioned about, being allowed to go out. And that's right. I remember I used to get such a hassle if I did want to go out without him,
Yeah.
with my girlfriends. It was like, just, it was always an argument. It was
Always
always
an
an
argument.
argument.
Yeah.
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 Well, I think the tipping point almost is in that you start to really believe that something is wrong with you.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that, "Oh, shit, I'm not doing these things right. I'm not wearing the skirt. I'm not whatever. I
Mhm.
don't have the right friends. It's all on me. I've done all these things wrong. I am so not worthy
Mhm.
of this relationship. This person who was, weeks ago or months ago, whatever, showering me with this love. I need to change. I need to behave differently in order
Mhm.
to be worthy, still be worthy of that relationship."
Yeah. Yeah. So that's interesting because, it was around this time. So I know in the PTSD episode we talked about me seeking out therapy for the rape, right?
Mhm,
The rape was by him. And well, I know you know that.
mhm.
And it was actually around this time that it actually occurred. That it was around this time. And that is what I think sealed the deal for me, because I see
What do you
don't
mean sealed the
well,
deal?
okay, so let me explain. So that's what I mean by that is, you and I culturally, we've grown up very differently, right? So
Mhm.
I'm Italian. My parents were more old fashioned. I mean, my dad more so than my mom, but there was a lot of old fashioned values. I was raised Catholic, so there was that element to it as well. And it's like, if you lose your virginity, but to somebody that you're not marrying, right?
Yeah.
Then, you're used goods. It's done. It's a done deal. And so I was when this all started with him, I had just turned 19. I had just turned 19. And so it was within that year that that rape happened. And so I was young, and I thought, and that was my first. Like, I mean, I had had boyfriends before, but really they were stupid high school boyfriends. You kissed and he felt your boobs, and that was about as far as it went, right? For me anyways, right?
Little
So,
dry hump.
yeah, or that too. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah, but that was as far as it. I mean, I had never even seen a guy's thing before until,
Sausage.
yeah, you know what I mean? The sausage
Sausage.
until my ex. And so, um I felt like I was done in for. I thought that was it. I'm going to have to stay with this person for the rest of my life now, because I'm never going to, like, no man is ever going to want me. I truly, truly believed, because of how I had been taught about it, right? Like sex and stuff, that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
the case. In addition, though, I mean, he also at that same time, um, kind of blamed me. Like, it happened. I was very clear that I did not want this, like very, very, very clear. And he did it anyways, right? And I remember, like, just sobbing. And he kept saying, "You're ruining it all. You're ruining it all. Why are you making this, such a sad situation? This should be a loving situation." And he really made me feel like I was being a stupid little girl for being so upset by this, and that really
Yeah.
fucked me over. Those 2 things, the cultural thing of, you've gotta be a virgin for your husband, and then the,
It
you
was
know,
like,
being
now
blind.
you're basically have to marry him.
That's
Yeah.
what I thought.
And
Honestly,
you're
Lo,
stuck
that's what I
in
thought.
this
Yeah. Well, I stayed with him for
forever.
fucking years. I was in my 20s when I broke up with him, so obviously I did, there was something going on there, right? So,
How
yeah,
long? How long did you stay with him?
6 years.
Good God.
I know. I know.
Um, the whole gaslighting
Mhm.
phase, right? That is when someone makes you doubt your own perception.
Yeah.
And they manipulate you into believing what they want you to believe.
Yeah, And I guess that's what he was
right?
doing. Yeah.
And that's exactly what he was doing. There's no question on it. When things go wrong, they're gonna blame you, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's also funny when you talk about that gaslighting, about the doubting your own perception and, manipulating you into believing their narrative and stuff. He would, if there was a place I wasn't comfortable with him going, like, let's say a strip bar with his friends that were known to be not so great. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And I had
yeah,
some issues with that, he would I came to realize after he was always picking a fight with me just before he was ready to go to this event that he knew I would not be happy about. So that way we'd be in an argument. I wasn't speaking to him for a day or so. And then he'd say, "Well, you weren't speaking to me and, you got mad and whatever. And I had to get out and, they just happened to be going there." It was kind of like that was his excuse, and I think that was a complete manipulation as well.
oh, 100%.
Did you know though? I don't know if you
So
knew.
calculating, eh?
Oh, like, honestly, when I think about it now, knowing a little bit more of what I know and hearing what you're talking about now when you're reading these things, it's like, yeah, you can clearly see it, but at the time when you're in it, you don't see it, right? Like, you really don't see it because you're just so enmeshed with it, and they are so manipulative and so good at what they do. If they weren't good at what they do, like, at this, I think there would be less
Yeah.
people out there that would, you know what I mean, have these stories. But I don't know if you knew this, but that term gaslighting, it was actually from a movie. I think it was like back in the 40s. Um,
Serious I had no idea.
yeah, yeah. The movie's actually called Gaslight. And I think Ingrid Bergman's in it. I think there was a supporting role from Angela Lansbury in it. I had
Mm,
seen it a long time ago, and it basically, it's and I guess this is why they got the term from it, but basically it's like this guy, this man, he meets this sheltered woman, AKA Bo. No, I'm kidding. So, like, you know what I mean? He meets this
yeah.
sheltered woman and, he's after her because she has some wealth. And so he, love bombs her, makes her fall in love with him, makes him completely dependent on him, does everything, with her. And then what he tries to do is make her feel crazy so that way he can dominate her and get what he wants, like get her to sign over things. And so how he does that is back in the 40s, your lighting system was on a gas line. So you would turn your lights on by turning on the gas and then lighting the lamp, right? And
Well,
that was
now it all makes perfect friggin' sense. I've
right,
always wondered where that
exactly.
term had come
Yeah,
from.
yeah. And so what he would actually do is he would go into the attic and he would lower the gas so that the lights would start to flicker or they would go off. And when he would come into the room, she'd be like, "I think something's wrong because the lights were flickering." He's like, "What are you talking about? They're not flickering. This is, you're losing your mind." Anyways, and it was this whole big story about how he was literally making her seem crazy because he was doing these things, or like he'd give her a gift and then she'd have it and she'd put it into her bag, or put it into her jewelry box, and then it would go missing, and he'd get so upset at her for losing this beautiful thing that he bought her, and he was so upset and she'd feel so bad. Meanwhile, he had taken it and hidden it on her, and then he would make it show up in some weird place, like the fridge or something, and then he'd say, like,
You're
"Something is
just
wrong with you. Like, you're
yeah,
really
yeah.
losing your mind." So that is where gaslighting came from. It came from that movie. It was a really interesting, for the 40s, that was a very interesting, thing to kind of, show, but
Well, I'm gonna have to look it up and watch it because I
yeah,
had no idea that's where the term had come from, which
yeah,
is kind of cool.
yeah,
So I'll definitely have to watch it. It's just scary to me that
yeah.
I don't know, that something like that can happen in a relationship and you just have to be like, how do you avoid it?
Well, it's funny, and I mean, because we started off talking about how you have a friend that kind of goes through this, you kind of question, like, why are you still there? I mentioned about how when we were young, it was kind of like a confusion as to why are you still with this person? And I think now as we're getting older, CeeLo, it's like you can see that there's just so many moving parts to these kinds of things. It's like there's so many things that play into it. I know this is going to sound really weird, but you know how they say that pedophiles groom their victims, and it's like they know which kids to pick, because they know which ones are either coming from, homes where they're not watched as much, or,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not saying that that's always the case, right? Like, because it happens to people who are very diligent, like parents who are very diligent with their children. But from what I've read, the norm is that they know who to pick. They know where to go. They can see the types of kids that might be a little bit easier to manipulate, and then they give it a shot. And if they're right, then they go for it, right? They go for that kid
Yeah.
and they begin their grooming process. To me, it feels the same. I think that these people also do the same type of grooming, but in a different way, right? Like it's the same type of process where they see that they have met a possible or potential victim, then they test the waters, and if they're getting the right results, they go all in. It's like, and it's a grooming process. It really changes how you feel about yourself.
Oh, 100%. I
Mhm.
it feels almost like textbook when you
Yeah,
go through the steps, and then maybe you look back on a relationship as you've been doing,
yeah,
thinking, "Oh, that's exactly what it is." But I do like, how do people learn how to be these people, right?
and
Is it just for that, sense of control over someone else and only ever getting exactly what they want out of it? Like,
I don't know.
who I don't understand that part of it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think generationally, I think like what I've learned, I think most abuse is generational, meaning they've learned it from somewhere, right? Like
Mm.
it's like it's passed down, it's passed down, it's passed down. I'm not saying that
Yeah,
about pedophilia because I'm not quite sure. I think that might actually be something wrong with your brain. I don't know, but
yeah.
I really don't know enough about it. But um, I
Well,
do think a lot of times it is a generational thing, and it wouldn't surprise me if these abusers were really abused themselves. I mean that you know where else
yeah,
would they get it from? I
sure.
don't know.
Then the next part that I was reading about is about, resigning to control
Hmm.
and about feeling so beaten down and confused. Mixed up in your own mind, you question everything that you're thinking or that you're doing. And you question whether or not how you're being treated is it really that bad? Am I being dramatic? That kind of thing.
Hmm.
And I feel like when I've talked to my friend about this before,
Hmm.
that was, like, exactly what she was saying. She'll say, "This is the situation, this is what happens," and then instead of immediately challenging back,
Hmm.
she's like, "It's me. I've done something, or I'm being too dramatic, or I'm asking for too much." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is like textbook." My textbook conversation with her was just like this, and I'm just like,
Yeah. So
"Well, yeah, she relinquishes all control,
control.
right?
Yeah.
Because she's the one in the wrong.
Yeah.
She's the one being too sensitive or too dramatic or too this, whatever."
And
And so
also
all control goes back to them.
it does. And also, I bet you if you talked to her about it, she would probably say something like, also, I was just so overwhelmed with all the arguments. I needed some peace. I was so sad all the time. I was just so upset all the time. I just give in now because I
Yeah,
just can't, I can't deal with it anymore. So it's kind of like you lose who you are and what you want so that you can just stop the craziness and the arguments and the everything, and you just kind of basically say, okay, that's it. You know, Funny. Oh my gosh, I'm, like, so sentimental today. I don't know what the hell it is with the movie and then, like, all these memories and stuff, but there's
yeah.
a Billy Joel song, called "And So It Goes," and back when I was dating my ex, um, this song was, I guess, out. It was maybe popular, I don't know, whatever, but, there was a line in the song that said, "So I will share this room with you, and you can have this heart to break." And I remember listening to that song, and I remember feeling so sorrowful because I was like, that's how I feel with my ex. I'm just giving you my heart to break because I have no control over it. So you can do whatever you want with it. And it's so sad to feel like you've given yourself up like that.
You can
Um
do whatever you want with it, and
yeah.
I'll just take it. I'll just suck it up. You
Yeah.
can on me, and I'll
Yes.
apologize to you for being in the way.
Yeah, because 'cause
Like,
you're
that is
so
fucked
beaten.
up.
I know, because 'cause you're so beaten down. You're so desperate to just stop feeling so shitty, and, I think the problem with a lot of this is these people know what they're doing. So we're talking about a lot of the negative CeeLo, but there's like a push-pull, right? There's this they do these things. So if you think about the love bombing, for example.
Yeah,
So they love bomb you because they're reeling you in. Then they criticize you and they're pushing you out. They're like demeaning you. They're breaking you down. Then they reel you back in again when they see that you're kind of, you know, getting
questioning.
away or questioning. Yeah,
Yeah,
they reel you back in with the love, and then they push you away and they make you depend on them. Then they bring you back in, and it's a constant cycle. And so you get really confused because the good times are so good.
yeah.
Like they're really, really good. And so when the bad times are bad, it's like you do get confused. And
Yes, I get that. I get that it's a cycle. It feels like a cycle when I talk to her about it, right? Like, what she's going through, it feels, they're either up or they're down, things
mm,
are good or they're bad. Mostly bad to in my mind, but, that's just like an outsider's perspective.
mhm,
I guess the question, I mean, I'm glad that I looked it up. I'm glad that we've been chatting about it. I
mhm.
feel a little bit more informed on, how she got to this point and why it's so hard to recognize,
Yeah,
or maybe it's hard to recognize it's time to leave, but it's even harder to then do something about it. So,
yeah.
how did you end up splitting it off with him? I don't even remember.
It's funny, divine intervention, if you will, I suppose. So he had left for a job. It was, kind of like an interim role that was going to, provide him with a promotion, and this role was in Edmonton. Um, and, we had lived in Toronto at that time. And prior to him going, I think he was gonna be gone for 6 months or something like that. So prior
Yeah,
to him leaving, he had proposed, right? And I at that time, I was like, "Oh, okay." Like, so bizarre. So he proposed. I felt like I had to say yes because I thought that that was what I had to do, right? And I remember,
back to your virginity.
well, and plus it's like, when you date someone for that long, I mean, isn't that what it's these old, stupid, old fashioned values. I mean, I know better now, but, at the time, that is what I was brought up thinking. And, that's what my parents were brought up thinking too. I mean, it's part of their
Yeah,
generation. Right. So, um, I remember saying to my mom at one point, I don't know why, but I'm just not happy about this. Like, I just don't really want to say yes, like I don't want to. And my mom made a comment. She's like, if you are feeling this way now, I don't think that you should. Right. But
yeah.
you want to know what really did it? What really, really did it for me? It
What?
was you, in a sense, because we were, I don't know, 23, 24, something like that.
Yeah,
And you had said to me, um, I'm going to move. I need a roommate. I'm moving to a different apartment or whatever. I need a roommate. Or, do you want to move in together? And I was like, "Oh my god, yeah. I'll move into the city with you." It was my first, like getting out of the house. I was, really excited. So you and I found an apartment together and we lived together. And I remember when I told him that I was going to move out of my parents' house and move in with you, he was not happy about that. He thought it was not the right thing to do. He actually called my parents and basically said, she should not be allowed to be living on her own. She's going to get up to no good. And, da, 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 da. I mean, I'm only going to be gone for 6 months and then I'll be back. What is this going to do? And, my father had a real issue with it because he was more old-fashioned and he kind of sided with my ex, and he's like, "Yeah, I think you're right." My mom surprisingly was like, "You know what? I think she should go. I think she should try it," because my mom had left her home, around the same age. I think she was 24 or
mhm,
25. And she moved from Sudbury, Ontario to Toronto, so that was, like, very small town to big city, and
mhm.
she said it was the best thing that she had ever done. So she thought I should do it, and, that is what helped me leave because once I got away from him, So
Yeah.
he was away for 6 months, and now I was living on my own, and even when he came back into Toronto, I was still on my own and not as accessible because I was in the downtown city part, not the suburbs. And that separation away, that time away
Mhm.
made me definitely start to see things that I had never seen before. And that's what lent itself. I think I stayed another year with him.
See, I didn't think it was that long,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
that time in my life was kind of blurry. Um,
I remember. That's
that's
another
another episode,
episode.
Lance. That's another episode. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I think, I think it's good to that I've tried to educate myself, right? Because I want to
Yeah.
be able to help this friend out and I want to be able to understand where she's coming from. But
Yeah.
I don't want to take the approach of what the fuck? Why don't you just leave? Why are you still with this guy? This makes
Yeah.
no sense to me
Yeah.
because that's not very productive.
Yeah.
But having an understanding now of the process that he's taken with her and where
Yeah.
they're at, and it's textbook. I'm able to now sit down with her and have a conversation around what I've seen happening,
Yeah.
right? And how I see her being treated. And I feel like a little boost of self-confidence, understanding, and support will hopefully
Yeah.
help her make some good decisions. I think
Mhm.
before too long, after years of this, you're in it. You're almost addicted to that relationship. It becomes the norm,
Yeah.
and you don't know any better. You don't
You
know
don't.
anything else. So
Well, and
it's
also you lose yourself, right? Like there's that part of you that truly does lose part of your identity. It is replaced by a narrative that this other person is putting onto it. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
it's so hard when you are in this, I don't know if you remember a long time ago we were talking about taking on the traits of who you date, right? Like how normal it is that, when you spend a lot of time with somebody, sometimes you kind of absorb some of their traits, right? And I think that that's only natural because human beings want to connect with each other. We're born to do that. And
Mhm.
so, especially when you're with somebody day in and day out, it's like you know, you start to build some new norms or some new traditions or some new ways of looking at things or new behaviors or whatever. And I think it's kind of the same thing. It's us as humans being so social, such social creatures, such creatures that need for survival connection.
Mhm.
It is easy to see how people can fall into that. And then you add into that someone who has compromised self-esteem
Yeah.
or a con artist who is really, really, really good at what they're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a recipe for disaster. And it's hard, but I'm glad that you're looking at this from a place of compassion because when you don't um live it yourself,
Yeah.
when you haven't experienced it yourself, people
Mhm.
don't get it. They don't understand. Like it's hard for them to truly empathize and put themselves in other people's shoes. So hopefully this kind of helps a little bit to see things from a different point of view. It's not
Yeah.
that that person is weak. It's that person is caught into something that they're having trouble breaking out of.
Over time. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And have now trouble seeing
Yeah.
outside, or seeing how to get out.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I mean, that makes perfect
Yeah.
sense to me. So I'm glad I'm gonna
Good.
set up a coffee chat with her and
Right.
share with her a little bit of what I've learned,
Yeah.
and hopefully be that, ear and that someone she can talk
I
to about
think
it.
that's awesome, CeeLo. Good for you. Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll do what I can, you
You
know?
do. You
It's a
do.
serious topic today.
Yeah, I know. We'll have to think of something funny for the next one. Like
Okay,
maybe
definitely.
your time in that apartment.
The blurry time in that apartment?
Oh, we've got some stories, that's for sure.
Girl, let's
Maybe
save
people are
those
gonna have to
for
pay for that one though. I don't know.
Oh, I think I would have to pay for them not to
Y
listen to that one.
maybe.
Mhm.
All right, honey.
Too funny.
Okay. Well, I guess until next time, this is Bo.
And this is CeeLo. Thanks for taking a seat at the table today. We love our dinner guests.
Don't forget to subscribe and follow The Dinner Agenda on the podcast platform you use so that you don't miss any new episodes. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at The Dinner Agenda.
We look forward to hearing your comments, questions, and even ideas you may have on future episodes.
Thanks for taking this journey with us.